Hey guys, Ryan Swag here. This is a clip from my live stream SwagTips where I talk about how to counter Rayquaza and a little light overview of its use in the meta. Alright, so this is my Rayquaza's counter graphic. Catch CP is 1995 to 2083. And if it's boosted by windy weather, you can get it at 2494 to 2604. The amount of players you need to beat down on Rayquaza, I'm putting 2 to 4. Now, I think the 2 is more for the bold, going for that challenge clear, but if it's like windy or snowing outside, it's crazy easy. Like if it's snowing outside, Rayquaza's pretty much donezo from any of these ice boys. So yeah, and I think generally a party of like 4 level like 30 players with the right counters could probably down Rayquaza. I don't know if I'm being a little bit lenient or hardcore about the party recommendation here, but out of any raid boss that we've had for like the longest time, this guy's probably one of the easiest, if not the easiest. It can be duoed in neutral weather, which is pretty big. And Moltres was like that. Moltres had some duos going on, but that was from like Golem exclusively. But Rayquaza, you can duo it with Jinxes and Dragonites and Rayquaza itself even. And Articuno comes in with some swag, and there's some like moveset dependencies where other Pokemon can go in and duo on the guy, and as I said before, if it's snowing outside, then basically every ice type can duo. So feeling pretty good about living in Wisconsin right now, where it's snowing all the time. I'm not gonna have any trouble beating down on Rayquaza here. So the el numero uno for this fight is apparently Articuno. It appears that way. Now, Articuno does have a pretty hard time against the Ancient Power moveset, but it's not like turbo bad against it, even though it does have the quad weakness to rock type attacks. Like, I'd say it moves down from being like supreme to just being good, but if it's like supreme against everything else, and it's as good as everybody else against the hard mode moveset for it, I think that for the broad spectrum that deserves it the golden ring there for the supreme. Then after that, basically every single good ice type just takes a big old frosty dump on Rayquaza. Lapras with any of its ice moves. Same with Piloswine and Ball Rain here. Yeah, they all hit them super good. Cloyster, you can use Ice Shard or Frost Breath with Avalanche or Blizzard. And then yeah, Jinx has the most DPS out of all the options here with Frost Breath and Avalanche. And you can also use Ice Punch to good effect. You won't be losing that much DPS from it. It's just Avalanche is like sort of like Dynamic Punch. It's just ridiculously good, much better than any other ice attack in the game. So you probably want to use Avalanche if you can. But I've got an Ice Punch Jinx, and I'm not going to TM it away. Got that Legacy swag. And yeah, and then Dragonite also swags on Rayquaza. And you might be kind of like confused, like, well, Rayquaza's a dragon. He's going to murder Dragonite with its dragon hits. And yeah, it has Outrage. But from what I was judging from the simulations, it seemed like it only really mattered if it had Dragon Tail and Outrage to hit Dragonite really hard. And even in that situation, like the situation with Articuno versus the Ancient Power set, it wasn't that big of a deal. And then I put a little Rayquaza buddy above the Dragonite because Rayquaza's a really good counter to Rayquaza, and it can participate in the duo. I just feel like Dragonite is a better overall pick. And then I also included Aggron as the tank option, because if you remember from the Aggron content, he's got some mad total damage output versus Rayquaza with its Dragon Tail and Stone Edge moveset. Now, this says all movesets, and I kind of hinted at some of Rayquaza's movesets, but if you're unfamiliar, in the current Game Master, Rayquaza is supposed to know Dragon Tail, Hair Slash, Ancient Power, Outrage, and Aerial Ace, right? So those are the moves that Rayquaza is projected to have. Now, Niantic has pulled the rug out from under us in the past. Like right when Suicune dropped, they got rid of Snarl and they gave it Hidden Power. And I guess now they got rid of Hidden Power and they changed back to Snarl for people that want to use TMs on Suicune. So, don't know why Niantic does things like this to us, but hey. But yeah, so we might wake up tomorrow, and then all of a sudden Rayquaza's movesets are different, which will be kind of annoying for me. I mean, I guess I'd have to make another video and make another graphic, so. But whatever, that's just how the tumbleweed tumbles. And yeah, so these aren't the only options that to use against Rayquaza. I mean, one Pokemon that you might think is underrepresented here, you might be missing from this graphic, is Gardevoir. Gardevoir is a fairy type, and also glass cannony to begin with. If it's not getting hit by a dragon type attack, which it has that doubled up resistance to, then it's taking some pretty heavy hits, because even though it's not weak to Aerial Ace or Ancient Power, it's still a pretty fragile Pokemon. I'll be using my Gardevoir for the Outrage movesets, but aside from that, Gardevoir might be just sitting in the box looking pretty. I'll show you guys the graphs and you'll see where the Pokemon that I put on them fall. So I don't have my wonderful branding thrown on these graphs yet, so people with that screenshot steal my stuff. So yeah, when I get these up on the YouTubes, I'll have a Imgur album link for you guys so you can, get a closer look, and I'll throw my beautiful branding in a little picture here and let you guys know it's from Pokebattler in the corner, stuff like that. But yeah, so this is level 40 versus all of Rayquaza's movesets with their performances averaged. No dodging involved because Deathloop glitch still exists. And yeah, so you'll see like the full breadth here. You'll see Articuno and Lapras kind of leading the charge in a pretty big way, which is pretty neat. Aggron also leading the charge as far as a high TDO option, but it's got some criminally low DPS going on, which is why I kind of caution against using Aggron. But its DPS isn't so bad where you wouldn't want to use one. Like, it's your choice. I say it's a very decent option. If I saw an Aggron in my Rayquaza raids, I wouldn't be like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? And Walrein, Dragonite, Piloswine, Cloyster, you can see they're all pretty good. And yeah, and you think Rayquaza is like a straight up upgrade to Dragonite, but apparently in the fight against itself, Dragonite's looking a bit better than Rayquaza. I guess in the all movesets average scenario at least. So yeah, I don't know, that's like something that I'll get into lightly here. Talking about Rayquaza's performance in the meta. It does compete with Dragonite. They've got the same moveset, and Rayquaza does have more attack than Dragonite does, but Dragonite's got a little bit more bulk. So, sort of like the Machamp and Hariyama situation, in a lot of raids and in a lot of simulators and stuff like that, Rayquaza will probably come out ahead of Dragonite, but I guess in reality, they're kind of a little bit of a... there's trade-offs between them. It's not just one or the other in a major way, but I think things will trend more towards Rayquaza being better than Dragonite. I guess what I'm saying is Rayquaza isn't like Kyogre is to Vaporeon, if that makes sense. It's like legendary Pokemon, but Dragonite is still that pseudo-legendary swaggin', like the lord of everything. And yeah, Salamence, notably worse than both of these two. And then the Draco Meteor is kind of a risky pick, because if you faint before you can get like one off or a second one off, then what did Salamence even do when these guys got outrages that have half the energy costs? So kind of cautious about Salamence here as a counter to this raid. And yeah, so I got a graph with some breakpoints highlighted. So for this graph, I'm showing various breakpoints and kind of a clusterfuck. Easy to get lost on this graph. And I cut off Aggron because with Aggron being so far to the right, it really squished everything together even more. So I was like, eh. But yeah, so this highlights various breakpoints, and they're nearly all offensive breakpoints for the Rayquaza raid. And the reason why there aren't many bulk points, there's one. I included Jinx's bulk point. And the reason why I didn't include bulk points or investigate bulk points too closely on this graph is one, it's kind of time consuming to investigate bulk points for multi-bar charge moves, and for two, because they are multi-bar charge moves, bulk points are, I guess, a little bit less useful than they would be against a single bar charge move raid boss, because single bar charge moves, you can predict them a bit more, they're more heavy hitting, so using a bulk point is a bit more significant for those fights. But with the multi-bar charge ones, you really can't predict them. Especially with Aerial Ace and Ancient Power being 3-bar charge moves, you could run into those situations where it just keeps launching charge move after charge move after charge move. So knowing how many fast moves in a single charge move you can survive, isn't as significant as it normally would be. And if you use Pokebattler's raid advice tool to try to track the total damage output and see where there's areas of significance, you'll see that it's like a gross kind of squiggly line for the most part. And once again, that's because the simulations are an average of like thousands of simulations that are run for the battle. And yeah, because the charge moves are so unpredictable, like it's so variable how many charge moves and how many fast moves your Pokemon's going to experience before it faints at, you know, any level. So yeah, bulk points are a little bit more nebulous for this fight. Now you might be wondering, well, what's up with Jynx at level 32.5? And even on Pokebattler's infographic for this fight, they even noted the 32.5. Well, what's going on at 32.5 is that is the bulk point where Jynx can survive 2 aerial aces in a row with 1 HP, or 1 outrage with 1 HP. And the reason why that's kind of important for Jynx is because Jynx is the highest DPS option. So you want to at least get off 1 avalanche from Jynx before it faints. And if you can get off 2 or more, that's even cooler. Let's say your Articuno faints and you bring out Jynx, and then Rayquaza used outrage right away because it still had, you know, enough energy to use it. Well, now your Jynx survives with 1 HP and it's able to get 1 avalanche off before it faints. So that's pretty useful for Jynx there. So a little thing to reach for if you got some Jynx, or hey, if you caught like a level 34 weather boosted Jynx, then you're probably already set. Yeah, you can't really check that bulk point using the bulk point calculator. So you'll have to, you know, enter the information into Pokebattler and then see how much damage your Jynx takes. It'd probably be a lot easier to look specifically at outrage and see if you have enough HP to survive that single outrage. I don't know if there's anything like super significant to point out here other than Jynx's bulk point, because I mean breakpoints are really straightforward. I guess another thing to talk about. The reason why there are so many breakpoints in this fight is because Rayquaza's got that 4x weakness, that doubled up super effective damage from the ice type hits, and with breakpoints, basically that means the damage is like ramping up faster than usual, so it's going to cross those like integer thresholds much earlier, so there's a lot more, like much more breakpoints to be had for this fight. Let's see, bottom line seems to be DPS. Oh, for the fight? Yeah, you kind of want to have the higher DPS options in this fight because they're all pretty dang tanky, and the fight is pretty easy, so it's like the faster you burn through it, the better. And stuff's surviving pretty well, but it's kind of hard to say exactly how well you're going to survive in your encounter because it uses multi-bar charge moves. And as I've mentioned in, you know, other raid counter videos, every time a raid boss has enough energy to use a charge move, each attack it does, at the end of the attack, it'll like basically flip a coin, heads or tails, 50-50. And if it gets heads, then the next attack it does will be the charge move. If it gets tails, then it'll just use a fast move again. So you could end up in situations where you're fighting Rayquaza and it's like just hitting you with like air slash for 6 turns over, and you're like, oh, when's the aerial ace gonna happen? And then all of a sudden it just belts out like 4 aerial aces in a row, and you're like, what the heck? So yeah, it's gonna be a really, I guess, unique fight compared to what we've been experiencing. And it's also going to be a stupid easy fight compared to what we've been experiencing. So some hype there, right? So you might be wondering, like, well, is there anything special or cool Rayquaza can do that Dragonite isn't already doing? Or like in a way that Rayquaza stands out in raids, right? As you know, Dragonite doesn't like particularly stand out in any raid fights, except for the Machamp solo with the Hurricane. All the other fights, it's a general good, like, kind of there option, you know, kind of sets the bar for what's good for a lot of fights, because if you're not as good as like this top generalist guy Dragonite, then why even rolling into the fight with whatever weak Pokemon you're using? So Rayquaza is going to be likely better than Dragonite in a lot of neutral situations just because it has that higher attack, but because of Dragonite's bulk, there'll probably be some trade-offs. But yeah, speaking of the Machamp raid though, I did make a graph for that. I don't think I saved it though, so yeah, this is Machamp counters at level 40. This is versus all the movesets averaged. And I could probably make this bigger for us. It is an overall pretty good Machamp counter. Yeah, so here's Lugia being way stupid better than everyone else, and here's Ho-Oh also being crazy stupid good. up here in outer space is Mewtwo with like the best DPS, but less TDO than these guys. And yeah, and then there's the rest of the Pokemon we tried to solo Machamp with. And yeah, Rayquaza is up here, close to Gardevoir as a overall kind of counter. And unlike Gardevoir, Rayquaza isn't weak to Heavy Slam. So Rayquaza is going to be a bit better than Gardevoir is against the Heavy Slam set. So if you're looking for more Pokemon to try to beef up your Machamp solo attempts, or if you're having particular trouble with the Heavy Slam moveset, Rayquaza does stand up to that fight. And then there's Metagross. Metagross is pretty cool too. And Metagross will also kind of stand out a bit against Heavy Slam. And I didn't graph anything specifically for Metagross because my content goals for tonight were specifically for the Rayquaza raid. So I'll probably be doing like Metagross and Salamence specific stuff in the near future. I got a whole weekend ahead of me, so fun times with that. So yeah, so that's the Rayquaza fight. A little bit overview of its use in the meta. Seems like we got a pretty easy fight ahead of us, and it's kind of reassuring to know that Rayquaza doesn't completely outright replace all our Dragonites. So that's pretty cool to look forward to. If you like this content, you want to see more, make sure to like and comment, let me know what's up. If you got any questions, comment below, let me know. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, because I'm only about 100 away from that 1,000, and I'd rather not get demonetized on the 20th. YouTube policy changes. Not so fun. SwagTips. If anything, I'm definitely going to power up a Salamence just so I can put it in gyms and be like, look, I have a Salamence. And then people will be like, oh man, it's so cool, that guy has a Salamence.